God morgon allesammans och hjärtligt välkomna tillbaka till Science Week där vi sänder live från hjärtat av Södertälje. Och jag heter fortfarande Lydia Capolicchio och ska guida er genom resten av veckan. Och idag torsdag, då kommer ni att få möta en mängd specialister som kan det här med hållbar produktion och hur man går vägen just till hållbar produktion. För det är också en resa. Men nu ska vi byta språk ett tag. Let's switch to English. And very much welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Science Week. Again, some of you were here yesterday. Yep. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you here live and that you're all well, by the way.
Thank you.
So before we start, why don't we introduce ourselves? Lars-Henrik, who are you?
Well, as you said, my name is Lars-Henrik Jörnving. Being here, I am in two roles. I am the chairman of Södertälje Science Park. And I also represent Scania, where I'm responsible for the industrial development.
Good that you're here again.
Thank you.
And Monica.
Yes, good morning. My name is Monica Bellgran and I'm professor here at KTH Södertälje. Also a director of a research platform at KTH called Industrial Transformation.
Yes, and we are going to see a lot about of you during the afternoon here.
Yep.
That will be also very interesting. And Stefan.
Good morning, I'm Stefan Hollmark and I am city director, which you can compare with CEO for the Municipality of Södertälje.
Yes. And Jim.
Morning, Lydia.
Good morning.
So I think I have the shortest name on the planet, Jim Fox. So I run Sweden operations here in Södertälje and also the campus lead for Snäckviken and Järtuna.
Mm. And you've only lived in Sweden for almost a year or
1 year.
1 year.
Almost exactly 1 year.
How is that? How's the winter? How is everything?
I have to say I'm really enjoying it. You know, it's a country of extremes when it comes to weather.
True.
You know, just before Christmas, I think it was -17. That's pretty cold. And then it goes up to sort of plus something and then back again. So yeah, I love the extremes of the weather. The summer was very pleasant. I live quite close to the water. I love the water, and I love everything there is about the socializing when we can in Stockholm. Stockholm's a lovely city.
Good to hear, Jim. So let's continue with our discussion. Continued progress within the field of sustainable production is crucial for the competitiveness of Swedish industry, and a lot of things are happening in Södertälje, which is very fun, of course. But what would you say is sustainable production from your point of view? You can start, whatever. Monica maybe can start.
Well,
your perception of it.
Well, I mean, we have the first level, we have the three components of sustainability, obviously, that's where we start. And then we have also the framework of 17 SDGs, but that's a lot, that's about everything. So I think that sustainable production is very much also something that needs to be adapted to each context of the companies and businesses. So for example, if I'm in the textile business, of course I need to more relate to the social sustainability. Versus, I think many manufacturing companies are quite good on the social sustainability part, but I think needs to drive the green part of sustainability much more in a much higher speed, I would say. So,
are you hinting that we should prioritize production more than social sustainability?
Well, I mean, production is one thing, but if you take green versus social,
yes,
I think for the companies being good on social, this is the baseline. You need to be good. That's no doubt about it. But I think then you need to prioritize the green part. Absolutely. I mean, we don't have more than like 6 years to hopefully handle the 1.5 degree issue, and we're not doing good on that journey.
That's true.
Yeah.
Who wants to continue? Jim?
Yeah, for sure. At a company level for AstraZeneca, you know, we have 3 pillars, you know, access to healthcare, environmental protection, and ethics and transparency. And
that's quite important for you, ethics and transparency, of course,
100%.
as a company, yeah.
You know, we're highly regulated and, you know, we provide life-saving medicines to patients. So we have to make sure that patients trust the quality of the medicines we produce and the reliability of their delivery. So,
Any opinions on what Monica said earlier?
I think it's a balance. Everything is a balance. If you overemphasize any one area, I think you will miss out on the others. So you have to get equilibrium, I think.
And Stefan,
Yeah.
you have a whole town to think about.
Yeah, I rather speak about sustainability in three aspects. The green sustainability, the social sustainability, and the economic sustainability. And all three are necessary to have sustainable cities.
What would you say is the easiest one from your perspective?
The easiest one, everything we do in the municipality is mostly social sustainability things. It's not easy.
None of them are actually, I think. Lars-Henrik,
Well,
what is...
all of us has been talking about the people, planet and profit, which is the three parts of a sustainable operations or sustainable production. And they are all connected. I mean, if we don't have our people engaged, working with improvements, being a part of everyday business, nothing will work. And then the working towards a more sustainable production is very much about continuous improvement work, as we have been doing based on the lean principles for decades. So the challenge now, I would say, is to get that in sustainability as a normal part of the daily continuous improvements. And that's one aspect on it. Then of course you have to have a profit to be able, so to say, to invest for the future. And all three are necessary. We can't really work only with one. But I can agree with Monica that maybe we should, so to say, continue to push for the planet part, of the green part. We have been talking for quite some time about sustainable production or sustainability in general. And I'm happy to say that now it starts to be, so to say, also actions. And there are in many factories and manufacturing sites a good progress. But it's still very much about reducing the climate impact by reducing the use of electricity or energy or some kind of circularity within the processes. And that has started.
There's no secret that last year Monica was quite frustrated over the speed. And then sincerely, what can we say have happened since last Science Week? Have we walked the talk, or there are some good news and some not so good news? There could be more things that could happen faster. Any comments on that? Jim wasn't here last year, so I think it's Monica and Lars-Henrik.
Well, as I said, it has been a lot of, so to say, discussion, talking. Now we have started. One part of it is to, so to say, introduce simple tools. And one example of that is what we call the Green Kaizen. The Green Kaizen, which is an improvement tool for so to say, towards more sustainable operations. And that's a quite easy tool that you can use more or less in all levels, everything from management, top management, to so to say, the teams of operators working with their improvements on their part of the factory.
But isn't it also an attitude, Monica? It's not all about tools, and Jim is nodding his head here. Attitude drives faster.
Yeah, but I think you're all representatives of working with lean. I know that you also have worked with lean. Lean is very much about the mindset. It starts with a mindset. It's the same thing now. This is a mindset thing that influences all the decisions you make, all the activities and so on. So I think you're absolutely right. It's an attitude, perspective, mindset. That's where it starts. But I don't think we have the sense of urgency and sense of crisis that we should need given the circumstances of the planet. So we have taken steps. Yes, absolutely. And I think we can see a lot of good steps just 1 year from now, because sustainable production, sustainability as a whole is more on the agenda. I think that circularity you mentioned is starting also to come on the agenda, but very slowly. And this is a really disruptive thing. If we're going circular, from linear, optimizing linear for 100 years, going circular, it's a big transformation that we cannot do within our own kind of walls. That's a transformative thing, and it started. I know that you're working with it, and also you're at Astra. But I think if we take other perspectives, an interesting thing is that given the resilience also discussion after the COVID, or we're about to, in the end of the COVID, we've seen the logistics problems, the material supply. And we have seen also discussion on what is sustainability. And we are seeing a little bit of trend of investments looking at, or investors' capital looking at Sweden, because in Sweden we are known to have a sustainable production, mainly because of the energy supply still. But so there's, things happening from other perspectives also, good things, I think, and good for Sweden.
But I think you make a good point, Monica. I think within our own walls of Scope 1, Scope 2, we're all doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
You know, and it starts with setting ambitious targets. And we're all setting super ambitious targets. But the Scope 3 stuff now, which is our entire value chain, that's where it's going to make the difference. Because I think 97% of AstraZeneca's footprint lies outside our own walls. And that's the bit to influence with our suppliers and the whole of the supply chain.
And just one thing that we tend to forget going upstreams, that is all your investments. Like we have 1,000 billion investments in the north. If every invested SEK is linear and not circular, we are going to live with it for a long time. And actually, we are working together with Astra now on green design, focusing on how you invest in a more green way. Because obviously, that's where you set everything. We tend to be very much in the operations, do fine-tuning, but now we need to move upfront and focus on the design part, on the investments.
And that's very true, because as I said, what we are doing now is to say, trying to reduce the impact in the factories, which is, of course, necessary to do, quite easy to do, but so to get into circularity, and that starts, at least for us, in the design department. I mean, our designers need to really, from the beginning, have that in mind, circularity of the products. And that will take, that has just started, I would say. It's on the agenda, but there is, once again, you get, the only key to get forward is to get the people to believe and understand and work, so to say, according to that.
So what you're saying, that this little country up north is suddenly very attractive in many ways, and we can narrow it even more. We come to Södertälje. Why is so many things happening here? Why in Södertälje?
I think it's an international town in Sweden with multinational companies, and we also have the people living in Södertälje has an international background, and therefore it's an international place. Therefore, I think it's happening in Södertälje.
Could I add one thing there?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's not so well known in Sweden that this is a very unique city, because I think it's the city with the most employees in industry in Sweden.
Yeah,
I know it's a city with like 8 to 10% of the Swedish export with these two companies. So that's quite tremendous.
We have to ask Jim, because he's not from here, obviously.
Yeah.
What
Are you
made
sure?
you? Yeah, I'm sure. What made you? What did caught your eye in this matter? Why did you get so curious about Sweden? Apart from AstraZeneca, of course. What is it that attracted
Sweden?
you and many others?
So firstly, I've always been curious about Scandinavia. You hear a lot of good things about innovation.
Not always. You haven't been that always, have you?
Well, perception outside of Sweden is a cool place. It's a cool place.
In many ways.
All sorts of ways. That's the starting point. And then, you look at some of the global indices, and I don't know whether people realize, but, if you look at the Global Innovative Index, Sweden is number 2 in the world. And it's been that way for the last 3 years. Surprising. Switzerland 1, Sweden 2, US 3, UK 4. Perhaps we don't talk about that enough. I don't know. But
or maybe we're reading different lists.
There are a lot of indices, right?
But do you agree, Lars-Henrik? Should we be more aware of this fact that Jim is talking about?
I think so. We actually talked about this morning, where Jim referred to this list. I think we are aware of it, but we don't really put it, so to say, up high and being, so to say, one part being proud of it, but also using it to attract more factories, more manufacturing.
But I have to ask, is this a cultural thing, or is it just you think because Swedes are Swedes and
yes.
they don't want to brag?
No, that's
That's amazing.
I'm convinced that is
2022 and we're still there. But that could be a serious problem, Monica.
That we don't.
That people don't. That we are not aware of the capacity and the strong quality that we have in many ways, innovation, etc.
I think we are aware, but we're still a bit. We don't have this culture of being very open and bragging, as you say, about it. But I think that sometimes we could be too aware of it. So we can also see the opposite. So we need to be a bit humble, I think. There's a lot of things happening out there, and we are 10 million people in this small country.
That's true. You have to be humble and keep this balance. So how can we act to remain attractive in this city or and in the country as a whole? How do you start your day when you think about that?
I think a lot about sustainability and especially social sustainability in Södertälje, of course. And I can speak a lot of what we are doing in Södertälje. I think I can talk about in a couple of hours about it, but I know I've only got a couple of minutes. Therefore, I compressed it into a speech, which I wrote down. So therefore, I have to read a little, if that's
interesting.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. In a couple of minutes, I would like to show how we work and would like to work in Södertälje to be an attractive municipality. And I don't know how much the listeners are knowing about Södertälje, but I try to do a short explanation what we do. Our overall goals in Södertälje are the same as the global goals, and our mission is to make it better, easier and more fun to live, work and study in Södertälje, now and in the future. The ambition is that everything we do should lead us towards becoming a more sustainable city. My definition of sustainable cities are cities that are dedicated to achieving green sustainability, social sustainability and economic sustainability, and we must therefore focus on all three aspects. In Södertälje Kommun, Södertälje Municipality, we work hard to improve the green sustainability in everything we do. Some examples are our involvement in Södertälje Science Park. Through public procurements, we can set sustainable requirements. We can get together with companies, develop relevant and good educations with framework of Yrkeshögskolan. And we provide sustainable infrastructure for electricity, heating, transport, internet, waste management, etc.
You have to put that on your website.
Yeah, I know. But that's not enough. To become a sustainable city, we must also work hard with the social sustainability. Almost everything we do is about creating as good opportunities as possible for people to live here and to give all children and adults the same opportunities in life, regardless of background. One of the most important factors required to be an attractive municipality is that there are good schools here in Södertälje, and we have invested a lot of money in our schools, and we have, among other things, introduced 2-teacher system, which means that there are 2 teachers in the classroom instead of 1. And our school results have largely improved for 10 years in a row.
And the rest we can take some other time, I think.
Blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
blah.
And it's a good example of the attitude from the town and from Södertälje, as a kommun, as we say in Sweden. Let's talk about more about how to be attractive as a community with people. how to attract competence. And I would like to start with you, Jim, because you came to Sweden for a couple of good reasons, but how do you continue that process to get people with competence to move to Södertälje? Now, when you know all the perspectives.
So if I take a step back, Stockholm is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, 100%.
Yep.
But you have this amazing industrial center only 30 kilometers from one of the most beautiful places in the world. You can't have an industry right in the middle of a beautiful city, right? So I think it's actually the perfect distance. And actually the connection is super good. So as long as we can make it easy for people to come and live in Södertälje or commute to Södertälje, I think that's the key thing. The actual distance, I don't think is a massive problem.
You have to have electrified transports going from Stockholm to Södertälje in the future.
Which, you know, as a company, that's what we're moving to.
Yeah.
I've ordered my first fully electric car. But I also think, you know, the fact that we've got KTH University as a presence here in Södertälje as well as, you know, in the city, and we're starting to connect, I think, certainly from our company, you know, Gothenburg, Göteborg as well. You know, so suddenly Sweden becomes a much smaller place. And actually the geography isn't so important. I just wonder, are we making it as easy to attract talent from outside of Sweden into Sweden? And is that important? It may not be. The whole academic system may be such that we don't need to, but sometimes it is quite good to get an external perspective.
In order to keep up the speed on sustainable production, do we have enough competence in Sweden? Monica, Lars-Henrik.
Yes and no, I would say it's always need of enlargement and new knowledge, and from that perspective, of course, it would be good to have some more people, say, looking into the future, finding the ways, the tools, the way forward. But one example of so to say trying to secure deeper knowledge or development of the knowledge of sustainable production is the initiatives that we took last year here in Södertälje to establish a national node for sustainable production, SuPr. And the ambition with that is not, so to say, to concentrate the development and research and so on here. We have KTH, of course, with focus on sustainability, but it's a question about connecting the clusters around Sweden where there already are good knowledge of sustainable production and get them together, not maybe physically, but together in developing the future sustainable production. That is quite a, so to say, a work that is ongoing. A lot of initiatives from the academy, from the companies and authorities, where I would say we are quite good in Sweden to get those three together.
Do you want to add something, Monica?
Yeah. I think there are several dimensions. I like Jim's way of putting it. You know, we have a beautiful city, Stockholm, and we have an industry center here, as we talked about. So also looking a bit broader, we have Mälardalen, the whole ecosystem around Mälardalen, which is a very, very strong industry system. And I think we actually do too little to bring the whole Mälardalen ecosystem together, because our competition is international, it's not national. So we could do much, much more. And Stockholm is a very strong industry node. It's not famous for being an industry city, but I believe it is, because there's a lot of headquarters there's a lot of R&D centers, there are also a lot of companies producing. So we should talk about that, we don't brag or so, we should be much better to visualize this. That's, I think, is one thing, and the academy is of course an important component of this. But I think the other thing is that the COVID now has shown us, for 2 years we have been working from home, many of us. So we could basically be on the moon to work wherever. So why perhaps Scania and Astra and the municipality will recruit people globally much more going further. I think that will be a trend, because, you know, say that the gym recruits people, you can be here 2 weeks every second month or something. Otherwise, you can be in New York.
In general, I think that's definitely correct. However, if we talk about production,
That's another
then
thing.
we need
absolutely.
to be in place.
Yeah.
That's
But different, engineers, different, experts.
And that's the same in the municipality because we have the people working with other people, and they need to be here.
Yeah, but I think we have different scales. There are always
Absolutely.
people need to be in operations. But there are also people that needs to work with strategy, long-term things, focus on technology development and so on.
Yeah, I think in the municipality about 85% of the people are in the operations, and only 10-15% are the strategy people like me.
But to attract people from outside Sweden, it's not only about the company and the wage or whatever, it's also about förskola, hur säger man det på engelska? Childcare. Preschool. I know a family where the woman was a professor. She came to Sweden because of that. And then they tend to move out when the children are older. But do you have any comments on that? How broad can you think when you think to attract people from outside?
But from maybe it's easier to attract people from outside to Sweden, but because we have a very good children's care. But when you are in Sweden, then you have to attract it from other municipalities where they live, maybe Stockholm, and to come to Södertälje. Then we have to build apartments, villas in attractive locations, so they can move here also. So.
Yeah.
That's also interesting because when we're talking about building, it's also a way of sustainable building we need to discuss. Finally, we have resilience, pandemics, circularity, and much more on the agenda now than before. It's so much on the plate here. Does this affect the process of sustainable production here and now? What would you say? Or has it helped? Has it improved in some way?
Maybe I can start. I can pick up from Lars-Henrik's point, where sustainability is good for the planet and it's good for business. So when you can get that win-win, good things happen. So, talking about Södertälje, we have really ambitious, I think you've got to set ambitious targets, which we have for 25 and 30. And they're stretch, which then that forces a pace, to your point previously, Monica. We don't have time to hang about because we've told lots of people that we're going to do these things and it's visible. And then that starts to change the mindset you were talking about, Lars-Henrik, and so on, and it drives it all the way through the organization. So I think to have a sustainable business here in Södertälje, we've got to set those targets and be relevant for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And by setting those targets and then delivering on them, because the follow-up is really important too, then I think that generates a future here. And so far, I think we're on a good track.
Isn't 10 years very far away nowadays?
It is, but you have to have a vision for 10 years and work back. If you only think 3 years ahead, you'll never reach the destination that you don't know you're heading to, is my view.
Lars-Henrik?
Connecting to that, I mean, we definitely need to look far ahead, 10, 15 years, to understand and put up, so to say, the vision. Where do we want to be in 10, 15 years? We have a tendency to so to say, dig into what's happening today or next week. And this is important, of course, to have a clear strategy or a vision where we're heading. But I connect to your question. I think that what you mentioned are a few things that have had an impact on our capability of continuing the journey towards a more sustainable society in general and more sustainable production. I also think that we have very much more understood the necessity of working, so to say, transfer between the suppliers, sub-suppliers, our operations and towards our customers. And that is maybe, in my opinion, is quite a big change if you compare a year ago or a couple of years ago. And then, of course, what happened during the pandemic with the transports of goods from Asia, for example, it's obvious that will not continue. Not only because it is fragile, but it is in a sustainable perspective I would say, stupid. We're sending things from the other side of the planet to Södertälje. So I think that we will see much more of suppliers, sub-suppliers in Northern Europe or in Europe and especially in Sweden.
So the money is coming back to Sweden.
Yes, I think so.
Local suppliers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I totally agree. I think that the supply chain and what we've seen will bring more production back to Europe and also to Sweden, because we want to have local production, absolutely. I'm thinking about circular economy, and now we know that the transformation from linear to circular is about half of the solution of the climate crisis. That we know right now. So how to transform to become circular, you need to do it in the whole value chain. So I'm thinking this is a very complex task. It will need a lot of also political decisions. You need to take away a lot of barriers. There's a lot of barriers to be able to transform, to become circular. And you need to think of it when you're in the design in the early phases to become circular later on. And I think here also it's much more involving the society. Creating today, we talk about industrial symbiosis, for example. It will be much more in the location where you are also to become circular. So we need to involve the whole society.
Working together. I think working together is a success factor to reach our global goals faster. And also we have to find new collaborations between private business, other organizations and public sector, of course, to find new opportunities. I think that's also a way to reach the goals faster. So, but how can we find the new collaborations? I don't know.
Well, I think we can continue with what we are. We are not that bad.
Södertälje Science Park, of course. So,
But I think that perhaps we need to take also a very strategic view on this. What is needed to work together to become circular? It's a huge task. It is not only about recycle. It's very much about reusing, prolonging the length of life of products, materials. We want everything to live for a very, very long time. We tend to see that I'm doing a good thing to sort all my garbage. Well, then you're far away, and it's also cost you a lot of energy to be in that phase. So I've talked about mindset. Here we have a mindset thing.
But do you think, the science-based targets, which are a global metric, and they assess your ability in the long term to get to net zero? And I think, there are only a few companies, and we're one of them, that's actually had them verified. But once you have that then underscored, there's no turning back.
No.
And as you say, the bigger challenge is the entire value chain now. Where we source, where we procure, how we look at our distribution, where we give our products to, and so on, which is and then that becomes circular.
I think that the science-based targets are really a driver for that. And as you said, Jim, when they are set, and so say, then you don't have a choice. And if you look into the value chain, as Monica mentioned, and the third part of so to say the targets, where we look into the impact from our customers using our products, that's a huge push to get, so to say, towards a sustainable transport system. And there we don't have a choice. So it's a driver, definitely, a good one.
Where would you say you are with your companies and your goals in 1 year, next Science Week? 2023. What can we be happy about? And this is only 1 year. And I mention 1 year because 1 year is also important in all this,
Absolutely.
in this process. What could you have achieved in 12 months, do you think, Lars-Henrik?
Well, as Monica said, there is not much time until we need to, so to say, keep this 1.5 degree goal. I think from our perspective, it's of course our development of a more sustainable transport system, electrical vehicles, alternative fuels, and that will, from our perspective, give the biggest impact on our footprint, so to say. Then in the production, well, we will continue with the improvements, the data improvements, reducing the impact and use of material, energy, and so on. And then hopefully we will get the circularity on the agenda for the designers, starting to take that into consideration from the beginning when we design our products. That I think is an important thing. And hopefully in 1 year, if you ask me, then I could say, yes, we are on that track. But it's, once again, sustainability in the transport system by our customers are, of course, for us, the biggest challenge, and also where we will focus a lot the year to come.
So Jim, in 1 year, what can you brag about?
I think we'll have had a successful year if we've got the passion throughout the whole of the organization. It's back to the lean thinking, identifying waste and removing it. And if that's all the way through the spine of the organization with a passion, I think it's the small steps that will make a big difference as well. You know, how you personally view waste. I think the other thing is collectively we've done a pretty good job at energy reduction, you know, green electricity, green steam, district heating. You know, I think then we need to be looking at how we, you know, our utilities behind the scenes. So, you know, in the summer we have a lot of chilling because we need to create the environment in order to manufacture. And there's different ways you can do chilling, for example, you know, and be careful how, you know, we use F gases and we want to replace F gas. So there's greenhouse gas emission that I think we can pay more attention to as well. But that then requires some investment and it requires some innovation,
etc.
so as we go around.
That's circular, if something. Stefan?
Yep. I hope that more people in Södertälje Municipality, Sweden and the world understand the necessary of having global and working toward the global goals. It's a mindset.
And you will make it happen.
Yeah, I will make it happen, of course, in Södertälje Municipality, of course. That's my mission.
I end up with you, Monica, again. Does it feel a little bit better now than it did last year?
Well, I think we have a nice time here, absolutely. But I think that we have examples of companies that really go by example, and as you say, you set a target, everyone will look at you and see if you deliver. So I think we have a very good community here of ambitious companies. But I hope for next year that we have taken big steps on the circularity journey, on this transformation. And I hope also that we have done more to involve every employee, every citizen, because I know that there's everyone, I would say, wants to do things, but if you're in a company, perhaps you don't know how really to do it compared to in your private life, you do a lot of things.
Exactly.
So I think every employer needs to think about how can we kind of utilize this engagement and passion that we can actually see.
And maybe the question starts with the employer, not always coming from somewhere else. That we all have to participate in questioning and asking, what can I do? What can we do?
Yeah.
And by the way, you four chit-chatting like this, could that happen now and then during the year?
We were having that exact conversation, weren't we?
Yeah, Jim just said this morning before, so absolutely.
Yeah. Why not?
Now that we meet and we really try together to strengthen from local prerequisites here in Södertälje to the general prerequisites for a successful manufacturing, AstraZeneca, Scania, the municipality, and KTH. And Södertälje Science Park is one, so to say, platform where we continuously meet and discuss.
So, thank you very much for sharing, and I wish you good luck. You need it, so do I, so do we all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are going to shift language again till svenska. Vi ska få veta mer om produktion 30 här i studion om en liten stund. Men först över